Hello friends, this is Scott, and here we are down at the hobby farm. This is the second video from my last trip down there. And here's the garlic, still all mulched in and coming up nicely. But it's that time of the year where I need to remove some of this leaves and mulch just so that the soil warms up and the plants aren't smothered. So I'll be doing a little bit of that in a later video. But here we are in my first bed. This is the very first bed that I first planted garlic and onions in. And I did cover it with leaves. The wind blew a lot of the leaves off. But as you see here, there's not many weeds, but we do have some volunteer onions and garlic, the ones that I missed picking last year. So the first step is I'm just going to dig these up and I'm going to reuse them. As you see, each bulb that's left in the ground will split into more than one new shoot. And then what those will do is they'll go to seed. So those plants there are not going to be good for production, but I'll continue to plant them anyway. I can use them for green onions, and we'll just see. Whatever we can get out of them, we'll get out of them. But again, quick first step is just to remove all the volunteers I want to keep and any other extraneous weeds. As you see, the mulch really does help with weed prevention. It's just at least weed reduction. Here's some garlic that I found. As you see, that's already split, and that's what happens with garlic. If you leave a head in, it splits into its own little cloves, and they all sprout, and then those can be planted. Now, these did overwinter in the ground, so they should bulb up this year. So I'll just move those over to my other garlic on the far side. See the tree behind me? It's kind of late to put on leaves, so it's good for get our initial growth in the spring. But then it also will provide some shade, and that's going to help with the crop that I'm planting in this bed, and that'll be sweet peas. Now, I've not planted sweet peas for many years, and the main reason is because I feed my backyard birds at home, and they eat all the plants, the little Tweety birds. So, yeah, if you feed your birds, you're not going to have a very good pea harvest unless you cover it. Now, here's a look at the soil. This is, year-old soil that I've made this bed, and it's all crumbly and nice and looking pretty good. So, it's I just think I need to rake it out, and I can plant right into this. And peas are one of those plants that don't need a lot of fertility. They actually pull nitrogen from the air, and they attach it to little nodules on the roots. And then when the root plants die and the roots die back, that releases the nitrogen to the other organisms to use. It's kind of an exchange system in the soil between microorganisms and chemicals. Well, I'm just raking off all the rest of the leaves that are in the way and just getting that mulch to the side, because I will reuse some mulch at the end of this project. But again, peas are a very cool crop. It's funny, you talk to older generations that has never eaten a fresh pea, and all they've eaten is peas out of the can, and they'll never understand what a fresh pea tastes like until they have one, because it's nothing like what you get in those slimy things in a can. It's just they're the best treat just to sit out in the garden, and most of them don't make it back into the house because you're just out here eating them. Now, sweet peas are a very early season crop, and the ones I'm planting are a pod pea, not the ones you'd use in a Chinese dish where you eat the whole pod and all. These are ones that you shell, and you eat the inside peas. Just getting the final rake done and getting it all ready. I'm leaving a little late getting these peas in the ground. They are a very early crop. Frost is not going to hurt them. You get them in the ground as early as you can. Sometimes I plant as early as February, but down here at the hobby farm, 6,340 feet above sea level, this is the first time I was able to get in here. I could have got them in the ground a couple weeks ago, but didn't get to it. Now there's the peas I got just from Intermountain Farmers, which is a local feed store. And I can't remember the name if these are like a Lincoln pea or something like that. I just bought the bulk peas because I wanted to get enough. And if you buy the little packages, you end up, it's much cheaper to buy just the bulk. So it's not a hard process. Now, I could have soaked these seeds overnight, and I did not do that for this time. But you can soak them. It helps, it softens them up and gets them to sprout a little quicker. When I planted peas in the past, I've never really had an issue. And if I have bare spots, I'll just replant. Now, there's a product called a garden inoculant, which is kind of a black powder coating that you can wet the seeds and then dip them in this powder and put them in the ground, and that assists the plants in creating nodules on their roots like we talked about, where nitrogen will be taken from the atmosphere and put on the roots in little nodules, and that little black powder will help with that. Unfortunately, it's a hard thing to find, so a lot of times you go to these big box nurseries and they don't even know what it is. So you have to go to a regular nursery that's just a nursery, and you'll find that product or order it online. But again, I've got a lot on my mind, and I didn't have any inoculant left. And I couldn't find it. So I'm just going to go ahead and plant these and just see how good they do. I am planting a big bed of peas. I do have some different types of smaller birds back here, but I've not, never fed them. So hopefully they don't take a liking to my pea plants, and hopefully the deer don't hop the fence and come over here and munch them all out. But, this is an experiment. We'll see. Having the garden very close to the house will hopefully help prevent deer from being in here. But, over the weekend I did kick 4 deer out of the yard when I went out to let the dog out to go to the bathroom at night. So they're around, and they'll be back here. So it's highly likely I'll have to build some fencing around this garden, but we'll see. Because my soil is very fluffy, even though it's a year-old bed, and I was able just to set the seeds on top of the soil and just space them out. I want to be about 2 to 3 inches apart. They will provide support for each other as they grow, and their little tentacles will intertwine. I add some stakes or other supports in here just to try to help them stay up off the ground, because that helps. You don't want the pods, laying in wet dirt. That just causes rot, and pest issues. So I'm just laying them out. Now, if I would have soaked the seeds, as you see here, they're just laid on the surface. If I would have soaked the seeds, I wouldn't have done it this way, because you'll see in a minute, I'm just going to push these in the soil with my fingers, and just very loose soil. If these seeds were soaked, they'd be soft, and I would be damaging the seeds probably by pushing them like that. So if I would have soaked them, I would have just taken a stick or a dibble, and I would have made an inch deep hole for each one, and then just make all the holes and then come through and put in all the peas. But I did it kind of the opposite way, because the seeds are definitely hard when they're dry. But it's not a hard process, but, need the old bucket. My knees are not what they used to be. So, but they're just laying them out on the surface, and Mr. Lincoln's keeping an eye on me, making sure that I'm doing a good job. But yeah, it's just a lot of peas, and I'm hoping that we have a great crop, because I'm planting a lot of peas, more than I probably ever have. And that's mostly because I just don't have the space in previous gardens. That's the downfall of gardening in the city, is you can grow a little bit of everything. We just can't grow a lot of anything, really. So there you go. And all the seeds are just laid out on the surface. It's a little bit hard to see them, but they're just sitting there. And now I'll come back through, and I just got, like I showed you, I'm just going to push them in the ground. And if you look at your fingers, the first little crease or the first knuckle in your finger is about an inch. So what I'll do is I'll push them in. I use 2 fingers with each seed, and I'll push them in up to that, a little past that first knuckle, and they'll be in the ground. And if I miss a few or they get pushed out as they root, not a big deal. I'll see them, and I can just shove them back into the ground. But it is a time-consuming process to do this size of a bed. But I'm looking forward to sweet peas, and I'm hoping that the birds won't eat them all. All the birds down here I've seen are usually doves, or these black-headed, I think they're juncos or juncos, something like that. And I don't know if they're going to eat my pea plants or not. So we'll see. We'll see how this all goes. In the future, if I have a problem, I'll just have to net it. But I do want to grow peas down here, because it is one of my favorite crops. And having the space now, I can, grow a little bit extra of the things that are, the most delicious for me and my family. And peas are definitely high on that list. With peas being a cold weather crop, they don't like the heat. So it does heat up down here. It's a little bit cooler than Salt Lake, but not a lot. So having the shade of this tree when it finally leaves out should help extend the harvest, and hopefully I'll get a decent pea crop. But if it gets too hot too quick, it stunts the peas, and you won't have a very good harvest. So I hope it works out, because we are getting them in a little bit late. It will be hot down here before we know it. But again, it just takes time. It's a very easy crop to plant, but it's just you have to get on your hands and knees and take care of business. So there's other cedars and things you could use, but in rows. But I'm not a row kind of gardener for many crops. I just like to kind of dense plant. But just finishing up, pushing the last of them in, and then we'll be done with this part of the process. But it's been nice being out here in the sun, and I don't mind a little bit of work. Now here's a look at the bed all planted. All the peas are pushed into the ground. As you see, all these leaves around that are fluttering in the breeze. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mulch this bed, but first I'm going to water it in really good. So mulch is great. Again, in the spring I pull it off, I plant my plants, I water them in really good, or plant my seeds and then water them, and then get some mulch back on it, but not very deep. In the winter I mulch very deep. I mulch 6-8 inches if I have enough material. Right now I don't want to mulch that much. I only want to mulch to try to keep the ground moist. And maybe suppress little weeds, but an inch of mulch is not going to suppress weeds. But it'll hopefully keep the ground moist enough, because I'm not down here all the time. And I could go days between trips. And until these plants are established, they could die, just very simply. So I want to make sure I get down here, and I need to make more trips down, shorter trips probably, just to make sure I keep everything moist until the roots get established in all the vegetables. And then mulch it heavy, and then I can be a lot more flexible with my time. But the soil is really good for, they're going into the second year bed. And this bed should be very productive. I did have onions in it last year and onions and garlic and peas don't really like each other, so I hope that doesn't have any detrimental effect, having those follow each other in the soil. But I think we'll be okay. Well, thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned. I've got more planting from this trip down. It'll be video 3, and I'll show you some more good stuff that we got in the ground. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you like what you see. Thank you.